Alright, YouTube, everyone's waiting for the October surprise that may come from WikiLeaks with, presumably, the theory goes that Assange has saved the best for last, and that sometime, a couple weeks before the actual voting happens, after the third debate, or maybe sooner than that, and he's promised teasers, that we're going to get some sort of dump from the Clinton campaign, probably involving internal emails and memos and things of that nature, that will denigrate her campaign. Text is always damaging. We saw what the DNC leaks did. We saw what the DCCC leaks did. We've seen what's happened overall with whistleblowing. There's a reason why the core of establishment politicians in D.C. don't like whistleblowers. There's a reason why Obama, not having really been in D.C., praised them when he was campaigning, when he was candidate Obama, and then very quickly started headhunting them with much greater fervor than Bush ever did when he got into office. There's a reason for that. It's strictly speaking, somebody on the campaign trail who isn't really in politics doesn't realize, there are people out there that really do want to take down your administration. It's going to happen. There are whistleblowers that are dedicated predominantly simply to exposing corruption, which is the subject of this video. Then there are others that are biased, honestly. Drudge will muckrake after Democrats. Certainly, Mother Jones will muckrake after the Republican side, typically speaking. Personally, I support them all. I don't care whether the corruption is on the so-called left, the so-called right. It doesn't really matter. People have a right to know what's actually going on. When people say, oh, the Russians hacked the DNC, don't care. Don't care if it was Russia. Don't care if it was a 400-pound man on his bed, as Trump suggested might be the case. It doesn't really matter. People still have a right to know that these things are going on. But there may be another October surprise now. Now, it can't be confirmed. But James O'Keefe is a relatively respected individual when it comes to muckraking. He's actually gotten in trouble before for conducting what amounts to surveillance on politicians and corporate heads and things of that nature. But you probably best know him if you have a memory span that dates back to the beginning of Obama's first administration. You probably know him as the man who brought down ACORN. Of course, ACORN at the time was involved in all sorts of shady dealings. The Congress decided to revoke their nonprofit status at the time because of his investigative journalism that he did. Because of his efforts, a shifty organization lost that status and quickly was denigrated into nothing more than a pile of ashes. So this is somebody who does have some chops as far as if he's claiming he's got some good material. Yeah, he's probably got some good material. Video clips and audio clips have been released repeatedly by O'Keefe over time, and now he's claiming, and there's a tweet in the description linked there. Again, I don't use Twitter. For anyone who doesn't know, I do not have a Twitter account, and I never will have a Twitter account. I refuse to use their service. But I'm going to link it there because Twitter's used by all sorts of other people. I don't really give a fuck. He's claiming that he has video of apparently Clinton or the Clinton campaign at large disparaging and denigrating black voters. I believe it. I believe this is probably true. He says it's coming in October. There's your October surprise. Any sane individual would not release it too quickly after a debate. They'd wait a couple days, or they would wait until all the debates are over so that there's no time to respond. Now, O'Keefe clearly is a partisan investigator. That is, he clearly goes after the left, just as like Mother Jones or maybe some MSNBC group would go after the right wing, so-called. That being said, who gives a fuck? Right now, Hillary Clinton is the person running who has political experience. Trump doesn't. He's never held an elected office. This is why it was so strange to me when they were at the debates, when Clinton was rambling about how he supposedly supported the Iraq War. Why didn't he just turn around and say, well, at the time you were in office, you voted for it, I wasn't a politician. All I said was, yeah, maybe we should get rid of Saddam Hussein. It would have been effective. I don't know why he didn't do that. But O'Keefe is promising he has actual video, actual tape of the Clinton campaign engaged in this. And I believe it. Hillary Clinton quite clearly, when she calls people deplorable and talks about how everyone has some sort of intrinsic racism, I think she's projecting. I think she's trying to normalize her own bigotry. Now, I can't blame her, because if you look at the time period in which she was younger, it's sort of late segregation, early non-segregation era, when that sort of prevailing wisdom was common among white people in the United States. I can't necessarily blame Clinton for her upbringing. That being said, I think it'll be jarring for the minority community to realize, indeed, the Democratic candidate probably is a bigot. Probably does. You look at the internal materials already released, and they're calling white voters in Ohio and Pennsylvania white trash. They're talking about taco bowl outreach in regards to Hispanic voters. There's no reason I can think of why I wouldn't assume that there's probably some of that shit going on in the Clinton campaign RE black voters, as opposed to perhaps the Trump campaign that apparently doesn't care about the racial issue, talks about simply make America great again as their prime slogan. Now, you can consider that an empty buzzword if you want, and it is propaganda. Let's face it, that's what politics is. It's a form of manipulation, propaganda, and pandering. It's elaborate theater. It's little more than a show that's put on every 4 years, with the express purpose of convincing people, often without any merit behind the convincing you're doing, to vote for you. But I do believe that it's likely that O'Keefe is telling the truth here. One thing I would tell him to do is make sure that material is backed up, so that if you accidentally drop a barbell on your throat while weightlifting, or you accidentally shoot yourself 4 or 5 times in the back of the head and it's ruled a suicide, so that the material does get released anyway. Maybe you should talk to Julian Assange on that. Assange also is apparently prepared in the coming days, I believe, if I remember correctly, to give some sort of a speech on his balcony from the Ecuadorian embassy, of course, over in the UK. I have to assume it probably has to do with the election. It would just make sense, or it may have to do with British politics, honestly. He does whistleblowing all over the world. I still find it funny when people think he's like a Russian agent when he's gone after Russia, too, and he's been intrinsic in that. Oh, yeah, Putin's an oligarch. Yeah, he's corrupt. Look at all of his business dealings. Oh, he's got billions of dollars, and he gets it from this foreign group and this, like crime syndicate or something. It just doesn't make sense. Hillary Clinton has repeatedly said Russia, Russia, Russia. Trump pointed this out. This is probably the most effective thing he said in regards to the Clinton campaign's own corruption. Said, oh yeah, all she does is blame Russia for everything that happens. Like, the DNC rigged the primaries? Oh, it's Russia's fault that you know about that, so you shouldn't look too deeply into it. Guccifer 2.0 releases an additional leak. Donna Brazil comes out and says, oh, people shouldn't look at these because there might be malware associated with them. We can't necessarily trust the messenger. It's like, don't read the message because the messenger might have a little bit of dirt on his hands or something like that. You don't want to get your hands dirty. It's really an interesting strategy that the Democratic Party has been using in this election to try to avoid all mention of their own corruption. I think, by the way, prediction for the second debate, I think Trump will be much more hard-hitting there. I think he spent half of the first debate just studying his opponent like he did at the first and second Republican debates during the primaries, where, honestly, he didn't fare quite as well as in later debates when he completely thrashed people up and down. I think that's what he does. That's his MO. He likes to study a person, and then he figures out how he can completely outmaneuver them. I'll also say about the vice presidential debate, I will watch and I will do a live stream analyzing that thereafter, although it's going to be boring, because who's debating? Mike Pence and Tim Kaine. Okay, I'm sure that this will be a regular humdinger. No, I'm sure that it'll be very policy-oriented. They're not like Trump and Clinton themselves. It's going to be very funny to see. I expect some perhaps dry one-liners from Tim Kaine. I expect Pence to show up, in his best suit, looking very astute, but ultimately, I don't like either of them particularly well, and I think it's going to be probably fight to a draw, honestly. Pence will probably have better substance. Tim Kaine will appear more likable. It'll actually be a little juxtaposition of the actual general campaign between Trump and Clinton. But yeah, we have James O'Keefe promising an October surprise. Whether or not it's actually going to happen is always up in the air. Even if such material exists, sometimes something gets stuck in the pipes, so to speak, with these investigations, number one. Number two, it could be a bluff, or it could be trying to egg on WikiLeaks to release their material to outmaneuver O'Keefe or something like that. But I would give good odds that he does have some sort of video or audio involving higher-ups within the campaign, maybe Clinton herself, probably Clinton herself if he has anything. And hopefully he releases this and, again, doesn't smash his own throat with a barbell or accidentally fall off a cliff or shoot himself 3 or 4 times or something. This seems to happen an awful lot to people that are involved with whistleblowing, re the Clintons. So hopefully this is maybe we'll get 2 October surprises. Can you imagine what would happen? You know, O'Keefe dumps something and says, oh yeah, Clinton calls black people Negroes still, you know, decades later. And at the same time, WikiLeaks releases 1,000 internal Clinton memos from the campaign talking about everybody, how they're stupid, how they're frightened, and they think they won't win. And it'd be a free-for-all. It would completely destroy our campaign. He actually posted this in reaction to somebody else who said, oh, well, people could have, video of Clinton doing horrible things and people wouldn't care. I think that perhaps people don't realize when you have an indirect scandal, you don't have actual video footage of the candidate doing something wrong or necessarily audio. It's just a dump of emails, a trove that's not by the average person who doesn't use WikiLeaks regularly, maybe easily searchable. When you have something like that, the media ends up having to be what digs through that material and releases it, or people like YouTubers or Facebook admins. The problem being all those people are biased. Half of them support Clinton. They're not going to post anything other than, oh, another phony scandal, look at all this crap. And those that aren't, those that'll actually dig through it, they actually have a reason to do so, tend to be aligned to the right. And so, somebody who's a Democratic partisan, they're never going to read that news story. But with O'Keefe, maybe he'll manage to get something out there that's damaging enough really to rip her campaign to shreds. It is possible. This is one of the most consistent reasons why, since it was clear who the nominees would be, I've given Trump an advantage. Because I am aware that Clinton is corrupt. And while they can easily weather, especially in the past, during the legacy media years of the TV generation or the early internet, while it's easy for them to weather people's suspicions that there's corruption going on, if you have video footage or an audio tape of Clinton saying, oh, well, these dumb Negroes voting Democrat, or these Taco Bowl Hispanics or something like that, like from their internal emails or something, or calling people white trash for supporting Trump, if you actually have video or audio of that, it becomes an order of magnitude more damaging. I think people would care. Specifically undecided voters. Maybe not Democratic partisans. They'd say, oh yeah, but Trump's racist too, so I'm still voting for Clinton. That would be exactly, by the way, their reasoning. But there are still, tens of millions of undecided voters in this country that haven't pledged themselves to either candidate, as well as a lot of soft supporters. If we look at the trend in early voting in Florida, we gauge the rest of the country roughly based on that, Trump already has an advantage. And as for the polling, I'll point this out really briefly. People are talking about, oh, Clinton got a bounce post-debate. No, she didn't. The polling is still roughly at the same level that it was before the debate. It's just that you have one polling firm that's saying, oh yeah, she's 4 points ahead. Well, LA Times says that Trump's 4 points ahead. It's the same spread we had before. There's no movement in the polls. You've got to aggregate it. You can't look at a single poll. People compare the aggregate. Here's the real stupidity. They look at the aggregate in the last round of polling where Trump is behind by a point. They compare it to a single poll from the new round showing Clinton up 4 points and deduce that she's risen 3 points. That's not how it works. It's an apples and oranges comparison. You're trying to match an aggregate with a single poll that will become aggregated. Don't do that. It makes you look like Karl Rove. This is a warning to the left, to the right, to everybody else under the sun. Either consistently use an aggregate, or determine for no apparent reason that a specific polling firm's better than all the others without knowing what bias may exist in the polling, what sampling problems may exist, and just stick with one polling firm. Do the opposite of what, in other words, Business Insider has begun to do in this election. They don't even talk about business anymore. All they do is constantly browbeat people about politics. Really rather strange. So yeah, James O'Keefe, who took down ACORN, he's a legit investigative journalist, is promising an October surprise. Hopefully it materializes, and I think there's a pretty good possibility that that actually happens. That's about all. Peace out.